Rainer Nölvak. Rainer Nölvak is chief motivator of the worldwide Let's Do It initiative. Started in Estonia, this is the organization behind a global sustainability effort called World Cleanup 2012. In one single day, 50,000 volunteers cleaned Rainer's home country, Estonia, of illegal debris. Rainer, who has completed 3 Ironman triathlons, is also the chairman of the Estonian Nature Fund. Rainer has a background in computing science, but after leaving academia, he now dedicates his time entirely to mobilizing people to help clean the world. Please join us in giving a warm round of applause to Rainer Nölvak.
I'm going to share a story with you about waste. But perhaps this is not about the waste really, so it is up to you to decide what it's about. But anyway, it started with waste. It was a few years back when Estonia looked like that. There were literally, you could barely walk like a few hundred meters from one spot to the other in a forest, and you could see pictures like that. It was the outcome of Soviet time. It was, people's behaving like other peoples did, etc. But it accumulated to the situation which was pretty unbearable. I'm kind of loner guy. I like to walk in the forest, and if you see the plastic bag or something like this there, it kind of, I felt it's violating my space. So we thought maybe we should, maybe somebody should do something. Well, it turned out that somebody didn't do much. And then I started to call the government saying that, hey, this is your responsibility. You should do something about it. Well, they said, yes, we should do, but we don't have funding. This is so big of a problem that we cannot solve it. And I got to the point where people were getting to be used to the waste in the forests. And really, it got to the point that I thought, we'll do a bit of an effort as a last one, and then if it doesn't work, then we just move to moon or something. But anyway, this is what happened.
We live on a beautiful planet, but we are trashing it day by day. Waste is everywhere. Beaches, cities, forests, even in oceans. In Europe, there is a small country called Estonia. Over half of its territory is covered with pristine forests. However, the forests were decorated with household and construction waste. Many people believed it is acceptable to bring their garbage to the forest, and they had been doing that for years. But there was a group of people who believed that all this could be changed.
Teeme ära sündis niimoodi, et kõigepealt tuli minul selline mõte, et mis oleks, kui koristaks Eestimaa täiesti puhtaks.
Ja kui me Raineriga kokku saime ja rääkisime enda plaanidest, et mida võiks ära teha, siis Rainer ütles, et stopp. Et selle me teeme ära küll, aga me teeme selle ära 1 päeva jooksul.
Jah, sellist asja polnud kunagi varem tehtud ja esiotsa ei olnud meil õrna aimugi, kuidas seda teha. Aga me olime kindlad, et seda on võimalik teha.
The idea was named Let's Do It, and the plan was to clean up 10,000 tons of waste in just one day. To do that, it was necessary to engage at least 40,000 volunteers. But how to do it? The first step was to create a team with the best professionals in Estonia. A grassroots initiative was launched. In a few weeks, there was a team of 20 volunteers, which eventually grew to 620 people.
Inimesed, keda me projekti kaasasime, olid oma ala töölised professionaalid. Ja nad tegid seda sellepärast, et see oli neile oluline.
The second step was to get the people, organizations, communities to gather enough support for the idea and find reliable partners. Initiators realized from the start that they needed the support of the entire society, so they went on to win the support of opinion leaders, NGOs, top IT specialists, the largest enterprises, politicians, the media, even the president, gathering eventually more than 500 official partners.
Iga firma panustas siis vastavalt sellele, mis ressursid tal olid, et kes tuli meile appi oma töötajatega, kes andis meile oma töövahendeid, prügiautosid, kes andis meile oma reklaamipindu.
Meile öeldi, et projekti lõpufaasis olime me nagu maffia. Keegi ei saanud meile ära öelda.
The third step was to locate and estimate the type and amount of garbage, creating the virtual garbage map.
see ei olnud raske kokku kombineerida Google Earthi ja mitmeid muid tarkvaralisi juppe, mis on kõik vabalt saadaval. Ja lõpptulemusena sündis siis väga lahe tarkvara, kus inimesed said oma mobiiltelefoniga metsas ringi kõndides vajutada nuppule ja öelda, et siin kohas on nüüd prügihunnik ja kaadril läks automaatselt selle siis telefoni asukoht ja pilt, mida inimene samal ajal tegi, kõik toimus reaalajas. Väga lõbus oli kaardistamise nädalavahetusel istuda arvuti taga ja vaadata, kuidas Eestit punktid muudkui tuli sinna kaardi peale.
In total, 720 volunteers took part in the mapping process and 10,656 trash points were located on the map. But the most important question remained, how to get 40,000 people to clean it all up.
Meie esimene ülesanne oli tegelikult üldse inimestele nii-öelda silme ette tuua, et mis olukord valitseb ja siis ka see olukord nii-öelda ära kaardistada, et siis näidata, mis on need tõelised suurusjärgud. Seda on keegi varem teinud ega isegi mõelnud.
Teiseks me korraldasime meediakampaania. Sellest sai suurim kampaania, mis Eestis alles tehtud on. Ja selle maksumuseks kujunes 0 krooni.
Estonian well-known actors, musicians, and cultural leaders gave their voice and face to the campaign for free. All of a sudden, Let's Do It was everywhere. The action of 40,000 needed to be organized. We asked people to register as teams via the internet. Each team was responsible for cleaning up certain trash points.
Kuskil 2 nädalat enne registreerimise lõppu oli meil umbes 10 000 inimest registreerinud ja siis me mõtlesime küll, et mis me nüüd teeme.
On that day, the most impossible dreams came true. More than 50,000 people came out to participate and the rest followed the process via all the media channels. That's 4% of a population of 1.3 million, which would equal 15.3 million in the United States or 57 million in India. There were also Americans, Russians, Germans, Swedish, Finns, Chinese, Lithuanians. The international media was following the most ambitious volunteer action in modern times. News of the event reached all around the globe. Under normal circumstances, it would have taken the government 3 years and 22.5 million euros for doing it. But it was done for €500,000 euros and in only 1 day. On the 3rd of May 2008, the whole territory of Estonia was cleaned of its garbage in 5 hours. We did it!
Ma loodan, et meie lugu teid inspireerib. Ja ma usun siiralt, et seda projekti saab teha ka teie kodumaal. See ei maksa palju ja see on kõigest 1 päev.
Let's do it!
Thank you. You know what was puzzling for me that day was that I thought it's going to be a hard job for people to really mess with the other people's waste. But what we saw was that people really had the different attitudes. They were, they felt like teams. They felt like they got some purpose in it. And really, the way look empowered and actually really happy after they've cleaned the country. So I thought there's got to be something else in there. It's not just the clean country we got. And it took me a long time to figure it out, but eventually it hit me that it was actually, it was not the cleanup of the forests we did, it was a cleanup in our heads that we did. Well, we were tired like dogs afterwards because it was 8 months of, almost non-stop work for weekends as well. Then we started to get calls from the other places asking was that for real? I mean, how did you do it, etc. And the next thing we know that the neighbors in Latvia, they had an event and they had 210,000 people come out. Next thing, Slovenians. There were a couple who started it. They got just married. They thought they move out of Slovenia, but they used their wedding gifts for organizing the event. They got 13% of population come join them. Then Serbia. This was a different story. They had government organize it. They had a department of Let's Do It in the Ministry of Environment, but it still worked. The results were not that good, but people came. Ukraine. Then we had Romania. 2 girls, they were aged 20, 21. They just went to see how Slovenia organized the cleanup, and 6 months later, they had, 250,000 people out. Bulgaria, this was the TV anchor, the lady really passionate. She drove through all the countries and throughout the country and convinced people to join, and eventually they got 322,000 people to join the action. I could go on and on with this, but it was not just only success, like you might think this is a success story, but India is a specific example. We did a trial project in New Delhi, and it was a huge business complex they cleaned up. And it was the same few days back afterwards. So we figured what's wrong with the model, why didn't it work in India? Then we asked people, why didn't you care about the clean place? And the guy looked at and said that, if this is going to be clean, then my rent would go up. So there was a lesson that really we need, in order to make sense of this sustainability and the planet, we need to have a sustainable development which can be affordable. We need affordable sustainability. But anyway, what we've seen is that I would say it's not activism, it's constructivism which works. I mean, we've seen an environmental movement do things like, voting for something or against something, demonstrating. It's nice, but see, all this confrontation where you go to is actually is kind of destructive because it doesn't give you a chance to look for a longer horizon. I see rather, just getting things done works much better, and you don't need to talk that much. We've seen that it takes about 5% of population to join the movement in order to create a critical mass, where this mutual reinforcement would enforce the behavior patterns to change. Suddenly your neighbor comes out and the daughter of your colleague, etc. And that would create the instant change. Just like we had in Estonia, it was okay one day to waste, to take your construction stuff into the forest, and the next day you might get beaten up for that. So it was 5% of the population who would decide actually what is a norm in society. And in India, we didn't have 5% yet, but we're still working on this. Then we figured maybe this idea would work for other places as well, and surprisingly enough, today we got teams in 94 countries. I think in most of your countries. We have a great team in France, we have a team in Belgium, we have a team in Germany, Netherlands. Russia is a huge team, etc. You name it, we can talk. Well, but we're not about the cleanups forever. I hate waste. This is why I started to deal with it, and I thought I'll be done with it. So it got me to think, what is the way to get rid of it permanently? And then I looked what's been done in the world in this, and it got me to the United Nations theme. Just came back from Rio 2 weeks ago, and it was a bit of disappointment for me, actually. If you think that 20 years ago we started to discuss about keeping the CO2 level on 350 parts per million. Last week I checked, this is 400. And I'm thinking, we're discussing for 20 years, and there is not much of a progress in it, plus the depletion of other systems, plus the 3 billion tons of waste we're creating every year. So there's got to be something else we can try. Governments, maybe it's not the right way. Then I looked at what is the agenda, why we're in this, and I was stuck with the most important document all the countries have signed. It's called Millennium Development Goals. And what we do there is we're fighting for development. We're fighting against poverty. We're fighting against violence. This is my favorite. I mean, you all agreed with this because the guys who you voted for, they signed it. I don't know if they thought about it or not, but anyway. And you fight against degradation and destruction of our common home. Well, see, this is the point here, because what governments do is they are designed to fight against other governments. So that's why they don't work. So I'm thinking, what if, just maybe I'm silly, what if we have fought enough? How about trying to do things together? Maybe like have a bit of fun in that process, like human beings used to have. If you can ask your granddads, perhaps they remember that time. They didn't have offices. So I'm thinking that there should be a solution to this, and I don't know exactly how it could be done, but I have a feeling that it can be done. I've had that before, and I think that together is the answer. I think all of you who are sitting here, you're working for the companies who are, I would say, one of the most powerful on the planet. And in many of those companies, you have technologies which can be used to create the sustainable communities, like tiny villages, perhaps, which can be sustainable. And on the other hand, we're working with communities, in 100 countries or so. And they are in desperate need of those technologies and the ways to structure the lives around them. So how about we try to work it out together? Maybe this would be the solution. Maybe you could get a lot of fun out of it. I don't think it's going to be expensive. I think it's vice versa. So how about instead of waiting for government to push another regulation to get into the lead and figure out how could we get even more sustainable without waiting for somebody pushing us? Just a thought. How about instead of looking on the progress of getting sustainability as a risk and expense situation where there's a lot of investments need to be done and maybe it doesn't work out, for the getting into the looking of it as the only realistic opportunity to go and obtain growth and also employment. How about instead of getting into the greenwash and trying to make some tiny, neat green things on your communication, getting into really into the systematic change? I think you're the guys who have that knowledge in the companies. You can do that. This is not governments. So if you're sitting for regulation to come to cut on the CO2 emissions, or you name it, or perhaps even worse, if you have somebody lobbying it for using disposable plastics for another decade, I mean, that's probably something you won't be proud of later. Well, this is now it's getting personal. See, I found that there's a thing called truth, and in case you didn't notice what it is or you don't know it, it's that I'm speaking what I mean. And I do believe in this, what I say. And I suggest to try that in communications. It is surprisingly easy to get the attention of people if you're true. It might hurt sometimes, but it's worth it. I think if you use your company's technologies for good, you can truly be a great role. You can help people play the heroes, and they will not forget it. Instead of pushing them the products they might need or might not need, or packaging this in 60 different boxes, just help them out to get this planet into the sustainability. It'll be rewarded, I think. And the last but simple least thing, just try to make sense when you do the communication. Try to make sense for yourself. If you stand up in the morning and look into the mirror, think about, are you happy about what you're doing? Or there is perhaps something else you can do. I've done it. I've worked for this for 5 years. I live out of my savings, and I'm happy. I really, I see there is not much of destruction coming out of it if you choose to, try to do a little bit different than you're supposed to. So try to make change, and it might help you yourself as well. And this is my team, some part of our team. We don't have much budget, so not that often we get together, but those are the folks we're working with. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rainer. If I could just ask you to join us over here in the question corner, and then we can have a few quick questions. We're eating into the coffee break, folks, but I think people aren't going to mind because obviously we want to have one or two questions that are probably still bottling in the crowd. I was actually almost hoping for a reaction from Dr. Herrero to what you just heard. There definitely was an act in that kind of activism.
The only word, the first word that comes to my mind is admiration. I mean, I think we should be extremely grateful that the world has people like you. And I'm not trying just to sort of flatter you or say nice things. I really believe that and speak the truth on that. Second is, when you could describe what you do, you could see the success element contains all the ingredients that we are talking before. It's a grassroots. Grassroots works. When it's dictated from above it doesn't. I mean, it's hard to think sometimes that people don't see that. But it needs to be orchestrated. We have a term in viral change we call design informality. Means you design for something that looks very informal and is pretty informal and is informal, but is well designed, is well crafted. You just don't close your eyes on things will happen. You have to orchestrate that. And then the third element is the sustainability of that. In my world, the add-on would be the viral element, how these guys can then engage another guy, and and create a movement that is growing and scale up beyond what is the event of the day, or the second day, or the third day. And I think it's perfectly doable, but it's something to look at and to learn from you, and I really wish that this thing scale up everywhere. And, you know, could be rubbish, could be something else. It could be anything, probably.
Are there questions from the floor? Do I see the hands shooting up yet? Over here there is one. If we could bring a microphone over here to the left. It's on its way.
Just a question for Dr. Herrera. Do you think we could have avoided a Macondo or a Fukushima in a World 2 construct?
A World 2 conflict.
Construct. I don't quite understand the question. I'm probably sorry again.
So, if you could we have avoided a Fukushima or a Macondo in a world organized on your World 2 concept?
Oh, I see. I understand the question now. Sorry, apologies. Yes. Well, I don't know. I have no idea, but I think so. I'll tell you something very interesting about the Macondo and because we do a lot of work in viral change on safety, and we do with companies who have done lots of progress, still doing lots of traditional World 1 training programs on safety, and nobody is expecting this thing to stop. You know, you need to train people for safety. There is no question about that. But did you think that the problem in that fiasco was, or the solution is to do more training? No, it was a cultural thing. It was the culture. It was you don't fix that with more training. So a World 2 where the people are engaged in a way that safety, for example, and we are doing now in the United States in a completely different area now, where, in caricature, safety becomes something that people talk about in the corridor at the same level as football or soccer. That's the sign. You can get that. That's a culture of safety, where it's become part of the furniture. You can get that. Well, I can't predict. I don't have a ball, but that's what you need. Is a culture. When you say a culture of. A culture of is when this off is as normal as talking about football. Otherwise, it's not a culture of. So if you could create that, and you create through a social movement, through viral change the world too, you are in a very good shape. I wish I had the data to predict what happened with that, but I would certainly go for that way, and the evidence says that that's what you need to do, and safety is a very good example on that.
It's interesting, I'm thinking how hard it is just to get my two kids to clean up their room, and you managed to mobilize 50,000 people to clean up an entire country in the space of one day. Obviously, we saw the structure of your campaign, but what really is the glue to go and mobilize individual anonymous people in such numbers, and then to be able to repeat that in other countries to the tune of 260,000?
You go clean the room with your kids.
In other words, the kick them in the butt move, which
Nope.
of course every mother knows.
You start it. You start cleaning, and you make fun out of it. They will follow.
Okay.
It works better than kicking the butt.
You can tell I'm a mother.
Report.
Well, we already heard yesterday that mothers are really responsible for everything now from Gerhard Roth. I mean, it's all our fault, whatever happens within our personalities. You mentioned that you were just in Brazil with the Let's Do It campaign at the Rio +20 summit, which by all accounts was a disappointment, and you've repeated that here. How does the financing work? For instance, what is the state of your campaign today, and how does the financing continue? I mean, obviously your savings isn't going to last forever. It's powered you along for 5 years, but...
Yeah, we got a little bit support from few companies. Not much, really, because we're not that good in talking to companies. We're much better in talking to people who are barefoot. We're actually, this is the way I like it, but I have nothing against companies. I see that now we're gonna need to talk to you people because we can't do it alone.
Afford, yeah.
Yeah. We have a bit of support from Estonian government. This is a bold, big country who's decided to help us a bit. But mostly we do it on a shoestring. I mean, conferences...
Do you actually have offices, or is this still running out of your basement? Or?
Yes, they're running out of my tiny old office.
Okay. This is interesting because you made a rather provocative announcement, Dr. Herrero, that the next revolution is employee activism. Just to get back to that discussion, are you predicting basically with this peer-to-peer movement the end of the executive board or the managerial board as we know it? It's a pretty scary concept for a lot of people in this room, I'm sure.
No, I mean, I don't know. I mean, some of them should disappear tomorrow, as far as I'm concerned, but that's a different topic. No, nobody's saying that the hierarchical organization, the hierarchical system and the top-down has to disappear. Of course not. I mean, there is a need to set directions, to set the vision, to create an overall narrative, etc., and that's what they should be doing and doing very well and paid for that. But the idea that just by doing that, the entire organization is going to follow and it just doesn't work. So you need the organization to be engaged, but not in the engaged will tell you what to do, or will listening more to what to do. I mean, there are lots of employee engagement these days, which is an industry on its own, as you know very well, where literally you go page by page, seeing what is behind. It's about we have to listen to them more, we have to tell them more, we have to listen more versus not listening. Or how much can you listen? The thing is there. So I think things are going to change. They are changing in some organizations at a different speed, in which the workforce, for a better word, are taking more charge of. Now, that's not the entire revolution, and it maybe will never happen in the way that is massive, but there are more and more examples that maybe a few years ago was anecdotal. They say, oh, these crazy guys in Brazil, they don't have that, and they don't have titles or whatever. We 1 in 1 million, and therefore nobody pays attention. Also, you can create a book about it, and that's it. But now it's happening in different degrees, and I think we need to be aware that because human beings are human beings, and they can get together to clean up rubbish, and they get together to do that and that, they can get together as well, inverted commas, to fix and do things inside the organization in a way that is self-managed. And it's nothing new as a concept, as I say. It's been there in little pockets for a while in many areas, but I think that my prediction is that this is an area that is still behind and is still very much controlled by the traditional way of thinking of the organization. And as soon as the thinking disappears and you see the organization more as an organism as opposed to an organization, and people know how to navigate in that new environment, which is different from the old navigation. To do that, we need new navigation skills. It will go in that direction. How fast, I don't know, but you can see it and smell it in many parts of the world.
Thomas, have you got any comments on this idea of moving to a peer-to-peer as opposed to a hierarchical structure?
It's a close question, so I could just say no, but I guess that's not what you want to...
You could, and we could just carry on.
I mean, to some degrees, we're doing that today. If you, and maybe actually us working in area roles, we're not in charge of only one territory, but several territories. I usually don't feel like I'm working in a hierarchical level with my team members, spread across 20-odd territories. But it's really, to a certain degree, a non-hierarchical conversation, planning process, strategy development, where we're both bringing in our unique perspectives. I don't think that the hierarchical structures will be overcome. But
you're saying the horizontal channels are there, the interdependence that he was talking about is already installed.
Especially in large and complex organizations, because otherwise you wouldn't have any virtual teams, right? And to that degree, I see that in place today.
Despite the fact that we have too many teams,
but I'm not expert enough in that subject to predict you how that's going to be looking like in 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Can I comment on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Dr. Leander, you made an excellent point about those two worlds. I do agree with you, but there's a crucial difference. I think who of you haven't been in both? This is like, it works like this. If you're in this second world management team, then you spend like maybe 75% of your time and resources on thinking and reaching consensus with a small group, and it takes a lot of time in proportionally. And once you're going so blindingly fast that you cannot imagine it with the traditional structures. Like, we had like 20 people for 5 months or 3 months. But then what happened, like, we had 600 and then we have 50,000 in a blink. And this is, I think, how future structures would work, that they would emerge based on needs, not based on historical necessity of having the shiny headquarters. I think this is what we're seeing, and it doesn't mean that the old structures are not needed, but we humans are more into the play, and we like to act on realities and situations where we can matter. And if we don't have that situation, we can let things go, and that's fine. I think this is more, we're getting more back into the human nature, and I think this is what's exciting about it.
Thank you very much, Rainer. Ladies and gentlemen, a plea for play, I think a very good idea. We've had 3 fascinating interventions once again this morning, but we really have run out of time, and you're basically going to your next best case presentations with a sip of coffee on the fly. So we'll bring this session to an end, but it was a good one, and I'd like to thank all 3 of our speakers, Thomas Jensen, Leandro Herrero, and Rainer Nölvak. Thank you very much for being here with us this morning, gentlemen.